Good morning, this is Onyabike Adventures. My name's Hawk, and today we're going to review and ride the Royal Enfield Himalayan. Onyabike Adventures use the Royal Enfield Himalayan to run all of our tours. We have tours throughout Vietnam, north, centre and south. We have tours all year long, good weather, bad weather, on-road, off-road, and we believe this is the bike that best suits those conditions in Vietnam. Now, the Royal Enfield Himalayan is a 4-stroke single-cylinder bike. It's a 411cc capacity, and it's got about 25 horsepower. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in Vietnam that is actually plenty. It's got a bore and stroke of 78mm by 86mm, which gives it quite a decent amount of torque, 32 Newton meters maximum torque on this bike. Again, this is not a big bike. We're not trying to compare it to a Triumph Tiger or a BMW GS, but for Vietnam this is actually plenty. This bike will pull through pretty much all the terrain and hills that we tend to use. Now, it's got an electronic ignition. It's also got electronic fuel injection on the current models, 5-speed gearbox. So some of the things we really like about this bike is the suspension. You actually get 200mm of travel on the front forks and 180mm of travel on the rear wheel. So great for bumpy stuff, broken roads, off-road, dirt tracks, which we try and find as many of as we can on tour. You've got a 21-inch wheel at the front, you've got a 17-inch wheel at the back. We use 50-50 or 70-30 on-road, off-road tyres, so we get some pretty good grip and pretty good handling. You've got disc brakes both front and rear, and that's pretty handy too. It's not a huge bike, it's 146 centimeter wheelbase, and what we do like about this bike is you've got a full 22 centimeters of ground clearance to the bash plate. So again, that off-road stuff works out pretty well. One of the other things that's great about this bike is it's not too high, only 80 centimeters seat height. So most guys of an average size can ride this bike quite comfortably. Even shorter people can get their toes down, and it's not particularly heavy. Curb weight, that's fully fueled up, 190, 195 kilos. So low and light, and most guys are going to find this pretty easy to handle. One of the great features of this bike is they've given it a 15-litre fuel tank. In Vietnam, there is nowhere you're going to run out of fuel. You're always going to have enough for the day, probably for 2 days. 15 litres is pretty generous. So although this bike is great and we think it's the best bike for Vietnam, we have had to make a few little changes in order to make it perfect for our tours. So I'll start at the front. The first thing we've done down here, we've put a little 15mm riser on this mudguard. The mudguard was a little bit too close to the tyre, and when we went through soft, wet mud, it was getting a little bit clogged up. At the front here, you can see this protector on our headlight. We've added that ourselves. We had it custom made in the metal shop here in Da Nang, and that just gives us a little bit of protection. Coming round to the side of the bike, we've added some crash bars to protect the engine in the case of a crash. Now, Royal Enfield do sell their own crash bars, but we looked at them, we weren't particularly impressed with them, so we went away and designed our own. Now, moving to the back, you can see here we've got our soft waterproof bags sitting on some luggage racks. Now, Royal Enfield only sell hard cases, so we had our own metalworker design the racks, and we've attached them to the side, and we've put those on all of our bikes. And then we've got either these Mad Fox waterproof bags or just normal dry bags can be strapped onto those to give a decent amount of luggage. At the back here we've got an extension that we've added to the standard luggage rack. The Royal Enfield comes with a very small rack. We want to be able to carry a decent amount of luggage, so we've put this larger extension on. Again, we had these made at our metal shop, made to order. What we've also had to do though is we've had to strengthen this luggage rack. Even before we extended it, we noticed that it had a little bit of flex in it with even a small amount of weight. So down here we've actually welded on an extension bar to support that luggage rack. So now we're confident we can put 15, 20, even 30 kilos on there and it's not going to move. So that's the only changes we've made to the bikes so far. Other than that, we found this bike to give us everything we want and be the perfect way of getting around Vietnam. Okay, so that's enough talking about the bike. Time for me to shut up and get on your bike. And we're testing out the Enfield. This Himalayan handles beautifully. The suspension's got loads of travel and fairly good. I find the position to be very comfortable. There's a nice big fuel tank to grip and there are some grooves on the fuel tank if you lean right forward. The bars are high enough. It's exactly the sort of road where the Himalayan excels. Plenty of control, good suspension and lightweight bike, so very easy to bounce around. Sorry, the only negative thing to say about this bike is that the ABS, while it's good to have it, cannot be switched off. So when you are off-road on dirt or gravel, sometimes you'd really rather not have the ABS cutting out your brakes. This bike will go up to about 110 before it starts to feel a little bit shaky and a little bit of vibration. One of the things I really love about the Enfield Himalayan is the sound. As you can see, I absolutely love this bike. I think it's perfect for Vietnam. Let's quickly hear from another guy. This is Eric from Australia. He's just been on a 7-day ride on a Royal Enfield Himalayan in Vietnam. So let's see what he's got to say.
Just done nearly 1,500 kilometres with Onyabike adventures around central Vietnam on the Himalayan 400. Now I normally ride a Triumph Tiger 800 at home and a road bike, another Triumph, on some questionable roads, but it was really quite a lot of fun to come out on a bike that I've been looking at and was quite keen to ride. Alright, the CCs aren't what I'm used to, the power isn't there, but we rode 2 up, and given the roads that you're riding in Vietnam, the close corners, the narrow alleys sometimes, the Himalayan did really, really well. We were pretty comfortable most of the time. Oh, in fact, I'd say all the time. It carried the load. We had about 30 kilos of gear with us, and the handling was fine. It's a little light on the front end when you're 2 up, but really that didn't bother us. We weren't doing stand-up dirt type stuff. Where we did have some dirt, we just slowed down, and really the torque of the motor does really well when you get the gearing wrong, which I did from time to time, and occasionally it slides into neutral when you don't want to, but really that's just getting used to the bike. And I thought for the kind of riding that we're doing, with the variety of riding that we did in Vietnam, something the size of the 400 Himalaya was just nice, and enjoyed the whole trip.
So overall, an absolutely brilliant bike for Vietnam. It's got enough power, enough speed, enough torque to handle all the conditions that we want. Top speed way over what we need for Vietnam. It's comfortable, it's lightweight, it's got great suspension, handles beautifully on all the terrains that we're going to do, which is pretty much every terrain you can think of. So of course it's not a big adventure bike. It's, if you're used to riding a GS, a Triumph Tiger, something like that, you're going to feel it's a little bit underpowered, but the speeds we're going in Vietnam, it handles it beautifully. I feel like if I was back in a Western country, I could still have one of these. I'd maybe want it as a second bike with a slightly bigger engine for longer journeys. And maybe if I was doing some serious off-road, some single track, I'd want a proper dirt bike. But in general, this bike does everything we want, perfect for riding tours in Vietnam on all terrains. Onyabike Adventures run tours throughout the year in all parts of the country, long tours, short tours, tours of any length. We also have pillion tours for people who cannot ride their own motorbike and want to sit on the back with one of our staff riding. So I hope you've found this video helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you absolutely love motorbikes, if you want to know more about Vietnam, or you just want to see more of me, all you've got to do is hit subscribe and you'll stay up to date with all our videos. So that's enough for today. I know what you're thinking, Hawk, shut up and get on your bike.